Welcome to Wear Your Cape to Work, a podcast hosted by Project Insight. We believe that project and program managers are the real superheroes of every organization. We want you to hear their stories so you can be inspired to wear your own cape to work. Today on Wear Your Cape to Work, we're joined by Sanjeev Bhagat, a manager of program management at Amazon, where he's leading global shipping and logistics initiatives for the world's largest e-commerce company. Sanjeev brings a mindset grounded in humility and constant learning. He'll share so much wisdom with us today, including how he gets to the heart of process improvement, how he stays relevant in a modern, fast-changing world, and the innovative ways he helps his teams cut through analysis paralysis to make confident decisions about the next steps they need to take in their project work. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today, Sanjeev.
Thank you so much, Trina, and thank you so much, Matthew, for inviting me for this podcast. I'll admit this is my first time doing something like this. So I'm really happy and honored to be here talking to you guys.
We're honored to have you for sure. Matt, go right ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the exact same thing. We're very excited to be working with you and collaborating with you through this. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, Sanjeev, you're the manager of program management and involved in the strategy of global logistic initiatives at Amazon.
That's right.
Just this morning, I wanted to bring my show and tell. I just had an Amazon package arrive on my doorstep right before we began the podcast. And
awesome.
I thought,
great way to start the podcast. Yeah.
Right. I needed to bring it right up here and show you that we are so impressed as we consider what Amazon has done as a company to be able to ship globally to all of us in a matter of moments. In fact, Matthew, this morning, you should tell your story, Matthew, about your Amazon morning.
Yeah, I mean, we went to the doctor with my daughter for a little finger incident she has. And on our way to the doctor, I pulled a package in. We got there and was recommended something where we were able to just get it ordered and it'll be here tomorrow. And just the most wonderful, convenient thing you can ask for. So thank you. Really.
Awesome.
We're excited to talk to you about how those projects get managed at Amazon, and we'll share about those as we get going. But can you kick us off just with maybe some thoughts about how you got interested in project management to begin with?
Yeah, sure. First of all, let me say, thank you so much. It's a great start that we started with this experience, sharing your experiences about Amazon. And that's absolutely the one thing which motivates each one of us working for Amazon. And that is what we work for, to see that happy faces of our customers. So absolutely. Thank you for starting with that, motivating use case. Okay. Talking about myself, what drawn me into project management. So let me take a step back and go back to where it all started. I've been working for more than 20 plus years now. I started off on the technical side, like many of us, with coding, with product development. And then as I was working on different projects, what I saw is I was more keen on understanding different aspects of the project. And that is where I got drawn into okay, I do the development piece of it, then what happens? How do we actually get the requirements? How do we actually connect with the people? So that thought drive me towards working closely towards the systems, towards the processes, understanding what is the the business need, and making sure that when I'm doing the development piece of it, I'm really connecting to the problem. I'm really solving the problem and not assuming what the solution should be. So, and that is where I realized the first basics of project is that understanding the importance of the definition of a problem. And that's drawn me towards going from technical side to more on the project management side, understanding the requirements, that how we gather requirements, how do we manage all the priorities that they have. So that's something which got me started with project management, and I gradually moved on to project management.
So you were in the IT space at
Yes.
a company, and having these development projects come through started you really thinking, these just aren't tasks that I check off in my day. There's a problem that an organization needs to solve, or a problem that we need to solve internally, and there's a method to solving that problem, and there's probably better efficient ways to do that work. Interesting.
One of the anecdotes that I can remember working on the technical side is that when we were giving requirements, so say for example, if there is a requirement to build, fingers, right? So if there is a requirement that, hey, you need to build 5 fingers, and those fingers need to work together. So as a developer, we don't have the context more often than not that whether those are 5 fingers of your hand or your feet.
Oh, sure.
Now to understand it, like they are still fingers, they still meet the requirements, but they are completely meant for different purposes. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if we don't, as a developer or somebody on the technical side or on the project side, doesn't understand the real use case or the problem that we are trying to solve, then even if we check all the boxes of the requirements, we still don't meet the requirements. So there's way more than just the requirements and how we are gathering the requirements, so when I started getting into it, it was a natural pull for me to move towards the project management. And I enjoyed working on the complex problems that came up with every project, whether I'm working for the private sector or whether I'm working for the public sector. And I had this unique privilege of working for projects all around the globe. So I have traveled a lot, working on different projects, and I'm happy that I got that exposure, and that what has really helped me understand a lot different aspects of project management and program management. And I am also really happy to see how project management as a whole has evolved from waterfall to agile to hybrid and whatnot. And right now at Amazon, like, we take a completely different approach to how we manage product and project and the complete portfolio of projects that we manage.
You posted just the other day, maybe a couple of weeks ago, on LinkedIn, a post that both Matthew and I saw and really enjoyed. And it was about this idea of the transformation of not just project management, but IT. We've gone from the internet to mobile computing to cloud platforms to AI. And there's this rapid evolution that happens around us. And yet you said the most successful projects that you've led are ones that start with a clear problem statement, just this idea of what needs solving. Did you have an awakening to that in that early part of project management? It sounds like overarchingly it's been a theme.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I have been observing over the years. And now, yes, as you mentioned, that article of the gold rush for AI is what I have written for LinkedIn. With the amount of projects, the number of projects that I have managed, I feel the basics of the problem, which I was stating earlier, has not changed, which is like we should not start a project with a solution or a tool in mind. It shouldn't be like, hey, I got this fancy tool, now how do I use this fancy tool? That often lands us in problem. And that's with everything. I try to relate project management with everything that I do in my personal life also. So I don't go to the grocery and look at a fancy thing and say, maybe let's take it home and let's figure out how we can use it, right? So what I try to do is, like, when we are doing projects, the basics did not change. We should first identify the problem, try to define the problem, and then look at it, whether we need a agentic AI, or whether it is just an automation, or whether it is just maybe a process change. So how much are we really trying to put an effort, and what is the outcome? So that is something which is fundamental to any project, and it doesn't matter which era we are in. So which we need to break it down and have a simplistic approach to that. The solution can be complex, but the approach should be simple. It should cater to the problem, and the tool should not drive the project. It's the problem that should drive, like, what tool to use or what process to go for. So that's something which I strongly believe in, and I still, when I'm managing a team of program managers, even at Amazon, whenever we are trying to look at, hey, how can we do things better, how can we bring in efficiency, and how can we serve the customers better. So whatever we think of, we start off with the customers. Absolutely, that's our number one mantra, that is the culture of Amazon. But then when we are looking at different projects, we try to take a moment to understand the problem and solve for the problem, rather than trying to pick up whether it is a trendy tool like a AI tool, and then try to see how can that tool solve our problem. Yes, that can be thought about later, but the first step may be a simple process change, or it can be a simple automation. So that's something which I strongly believe in. Yes.
What does that look like in your teams when you're managing that and we're coming together to try to solve a problem? Is that just a stakeholder meeting that you're having with the program managers that report to you, or what does that look like?
So basically, the way it works in my team right now is that what we do is that we look into like an approach of what do we do today, how do we do things today, right? And how can we do it in a better way, in a more efficient way. So we try to look at the current processes and what are our opportunities of improving those processes or automating those processes, and then look into prioritize into, like, if break it down into different projects that we can do for all the programs that we are doing. Okay, these are all the processes, this is where are we, these are our measuring matrices, and let's look at how we can improve those processes. Now, those improvements can be done in different ways, whether it is using AI tool or whether it is program, and we can write a code to automate some pieces of it, or it is a complete re-engineering of a process. And what still drives me is that the amazing thing is that there are so many projects that I have driven where instead of automating or trying to use a fancy tool, what we have done is re-engineered the entire process, and the impact it had was way more than using a fancy tool. Now, I'm not saying that AI has not improved. Yes, absolutely. Even the re-engineering, sometimes we use AI as a tool. But then so basically what I'm saying is that we look into all the problems that we are there, and then look into what approach we should be taking, whether it is process re-engineering, whether it is automation, or whether it is AI. And then you can use different tools for analyzing it, and AI can be one of the tools.
That's interesting. I'm thinking about what you've said now. It seems like a lot of these efficiency projects are managing an issue or a problem or an obstacle or something that you'd like to fix. In the teams that you're managing, you're doing things like streamlining cross-border shipping and operations and, having more efficiencies in the way that you do things. Does it seem like you're always problem solving as a project manager in the teams that you're doing? Is that primarily what you're doing, is coming with an answer?
Yes, not just problem solving. We are also looking for opportunities of improvement, because that's how we get better. Like,
Right.
I think the culture of Amazon is we are never satisfied with where we are. We always try to be better. Like, if you are clicking on something, and we are able to order that product within a day with Prime, how can we do it within the half a day? How can we do it maybe in the future within a couple of hours of the essential goods, and things like that? So there are different departments within Amazon as an organization that we are looking at improving or being the best. And we are not competing with anything, but we are competing with our own matrices that we have. So that is one of the things that is there. So it's not just problem solving, it's also being better at what we are doing today, and how can we be better at it. And ultimately, everything starts with customer satisfaction, and we work backwards from there. So, okay, if a customer is happy ordering and getting the product in a day, would it would they be more happy if they can order, and by the time they can go to the grocery and get the stuff, maybe they can order and we get the stuff at the same time with them having to leave their home, right? So that is where it comes from. So everything starts with the customer, and then we walk backwards and see if we can achieve that goal and how can we achieve that goal.
The fact that you're looking for opportunities as to what you're doing and competing with yourself, right, has obviously taken you to such a high level as an organization that you're there. You're that easy place where I go boop boop and then I have what I want and everybody smiles and we're happy about it, right? So
right.
I was just going to ask, you're solving all of these problems professionally. Is that something that you take into your, personal life as well? Like, are you, constantly, doing puzzles or
and an efficiency
brain
guy
teasers?
at home?
Yeah, is that carry forward or?
No, I don't think my personal life, I try to take it easy. I have two kids. One is in high school, one is in elementary school. So whenever off work, I try to keep myself out of it and be a dad with the kids and try to balance it out. So yeah. Absolutely.
You're not fixing new ways. Everyone has to get in the car this way. Okay, we're all going to have this new process to drive to grandma's house.
I think I'll get into problem if I try to do that. Sometimes personal life doesn't fix this. What they need is their dad to be around them and just listen to them. They don't want any problem solving. I don't try to get into that space.
But to that end, I think you and I talked, well, I know we talked before, and you had mentioned that you've always had a passion for solving puzzles anyway, that it just has come natural to you, something you were kind of born with. Does that puzzle sense happen at your day-to-day work every day at Amazon? You're going in and solving, does it feel like a puzzle?
I think what we do in our professional life does have an impact and does also help in how you navigate through it at a certain point in time. So the simple thing is that there's so many things that we deal with in our personal lives also. One thing which comes out is prioritization. How do we prioritize? So if I have 10 things, so like Monday to Friday, if I'm spending most of my time at work on Saturdays, I do have a list that I get for my family. Like these are the 10, 50 things that I need to do from law, moving to, So I do use my, all the learnings that I have, like let's prioritize, which is the most important thing that I can do, accomplish this weekend and still spend some time and have my me time. So yeah, I do the prioritization technique. I look into like what has the biggest impact. If I don't do this week, can I move it to the next week? Yeah, absolutely.
It's a superpower. I mean, that's what we're here talking about today, is something that is really a skill that you are either born with or you've developed that helps you at work to do this heroic effort that you do each day to lead these teams, to rally people around the goals that Amazon has, to delight their customers and to make it even better, even surprisingly better, tomorrow for these people. And you bring that puzzle solving to the office, which is really great. Let's just talk a little bit about the Amazon world of project management. There have to be billions of projects going on at one time at Amazon. And you've mentioned some styles of project methodologies, agile, hybrid, waterfall. But I think Jeff Bezos, too, has a framework for decision-making and leadership principles that you've mentioned. And maybe you could share with our audience some of those insights and how we can look at projects a little differently than maybe waterfall, agile, hybrid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of Jeff Bezos, and I've been following him before I joined Amazon. And after I have joined Amazon, I get to live with those leadership principles that makes Amazon what it is today and drives us forward. So there are so many leadership principles, and one of them, which is the most important one, which is customer obsession. It's not satisfaction. It's not customer fulfillment. It's obsession. And that is at the core of I believe how Amazon is driven. So that's something which we always start with. We start with what is it that will benefit the customers the most, and then walking backwards and then looking at what can we do to meet that um, make the customer happy or meet the customer obsession leadership principle. And in order to do that, Bezos also has come up with like really good techniques. So there is something called like sometimes we get into analysis paralysis. So sometimes when we are trying to start a project, we try to overanalyze things, and then we try to spend way more time to think whether this is the right solution or not. To that, what I have learned in Amazon is a bias for action. So sometimes instead, if there is a project, you would instead of getting into the analysis paralysis, we should always have bias for action. So let's do it at a smaller scale and see how it works out. That is
Oh,
one.
interesting.
And other interesting framework that I have learned in Amazon is the two-door and the one-door decision-making framework. So what I mean by that is that there are certain decisions that you can take as a two-door policy. So what you do is that if you can take that decision, and once you take that decision, you go ahead with that, and you realize that that's not the right decision, you can easily come back from that. So that is a two-door decision. So if there is a decision
Interesting.
making for that particular framework, then you don't need to get into the analysis paralysis and do overanalyze. And so you can quickly take that decision, go ahead with it, because if you take that decision, you will be able to really test whether your decision was right or wrong, instead
Right.
of thinking of whether it is the right decision. So we should always exercise bias for action. If we have a situation like that where we can take a two-door decision, take the decision in a small scope and see if that is working out. If that doesn't work, we can always step back and take the next option which is there. But whenever there is a big impact, so that is a one-door decision which is very difficult to come back from, and that is where a thorough analysis makes sense. So those are the two things I think has helped immensely. And then one of the things which is has always helped me, I have learned in Amazon, and is something which I currently follow, is the minimum regret framework. What it actually means is that if you want to take a big decision right now in your life, so you try to put it like 5 years from now, if you don't take this decision, would you regret that decision or not? If you would regret it 5 years from now, then whether you are successful or not, it makes every sense for you to take that decision, because you don't want to regret it, right? Whether it is work, whether it is marriage, or whether it is business or anything, or a job that you want to take, would you regret not taking that 5 years from now? So if you think that you will regret, so put yourself in a time capsule and think of 5 years ahead of now, and see if you regret, then it's a no-brainer. Go ahead and take a decision. If you feel that you will not regret, then don't do it, because that's something which you don't need to do. So it makes decision making so easy, and I feel like that's something which I have learned and I try to implement. So whenever, as you mentioned, like whatever we learn at work, how do you use it in your life? So these are some of the things I learned, and I'm so happy to share it with all of you.
Thank you for sharing. I think that I think Trina is also a visual person,
Yes.
where I can just picture this flow chart of this, right? Like, can
Yes.
you walk it back? Yes. Execute a little bit, see how it works. Is this going to cause issues in the future? Whoa, slow down, and let's actually dive in the weeds on what that is. When you are analyzing a decision that is more difficult to walk back, or that has bigger impact, what does that look like for you? Obviously keeping customer first, but beyond that, is it looking at different pathways, or how do you go about?
look at it like you have done the initial analysis and you have felt like, okay, in 2 weeks we should be able to implement that solution. But now there are so many risks. Now, if you have to run by every risk scenarios, it will take you another 3 weeks. So it's much more easier to just do it, do that pilot, bias for action, right? Take that action and then run it through the testing and see whether those risks hold good or not. You will be spending way more time to analyze the risk without doing it.
It's like you're sending out a scout, right? Somebody's
Yes.
gone on ahead.
Yeah.
They're trying it out. They're going to report back and then let
Yeah,
you know if you
yeah.
can bring the entire, company with you on the next roll of it or whatever else it happens to be. Yeah. I like that. I like the bias. That's getting the action ahead. Get the action out there. Do the action. Take the action. Try it. If you're not going to have to, you don't know what the risk is for sure.
I use it in my personal life too. So when we go to a new restaurant and try to try in a new dish, and my daughter looks at the food and says, "I don't think I'm going to like it," I said, "Why don't you go and take a small bite and see whether you like it or not? Instead of staring that food, you will never know how that food tastes unless you take a small bite, right?
Right.
So that's as easy as it gets. So it's always that way. Like sometimes you don't have to just stare at things and try to analyze whether this is a thing for me or not. Sometimes it's just as simple as taking a small bite, and that will tell you whether you really like it or not.
I think our audience is going, I'm so using this for the rest of my life. Like there's a lot of people in analysis paralysis.
Right.
It's very hard, and it could be any topic, right? It doesn't have to be a work decision about whether or not you're going to be able to do this cross-border shipping. It could be like you're talking about choosing a new dish at a restaurant. It could be, should I paint this wall yellow? I don't know. I mean, if you paint it yellow, it's definitely a two-door decision. You can come back and go in the green door later if that's what you decide that you want to do. So that's amazing. I think these are great approaches that people can apply right away. But you have a lot of advice out there for growing companies that are trying to stand up a project management office. For our listeners who don't know the acronym PMO, but this office, a group of people that are going to manage projects and help companies lead projects. These growing companies are facing a new challenge of capturing, data about their projects, measuring, how they do project work, planning for how that works, and controlling all of it across all of their teams. Do you have some pieces of advice for companies that find themselves in this position of, should we have a PMO? What are the benefits? How should we stand this up? Maybe share with our audience.
I would advise us start simple. So what I mean by that, we don't need to over-engineer the portfolio management piece or starting a PMO. Just begin with what are the top priorities and who owns them, right? And how are you measuring the progress of different projects? I think that's the very heart of portfolio management. Like instead of looking at each project in a very tunnel vision, look at overall project, like how are we managing the top priorities, how are we measuring each of these projects, and then layer in processes and tools and governance as you grow, right? Try to bring in processes of how going forward, how do you manage all those. Try to look into tools that will help you maybe move from initially maybe start with an Excel, but later on, I believe when you have more and more projects, I think a tool really does a great job. There are so many, and Project Insight does have a tool for portfolio management. And also then come up with governance as you grow, right? The PMO should be seen as a partner to the business, okay, and not just a reporting function. So it is very important that do it in the right way. And if it is done in the right way, I feel it is a value multiplier. It will definitely boost how you are managing all the different projects. And then it will help the leaders see the big pictures and also help in reducing a lot of waste and help you deliver projects faster. Because if you look at it, like if a leadership team asks you, hey, how are we doing all the projects, and if you are not providing a simplified one dashboard for all the projects, then as a leader, I have like very tunnel vision, and I don't know overall how much am I spending as an organization, how much are we spending in all the projects, and does those spendings really give the value add that is required. So I think that is where a PMO comes in very handy in providing that vision and guidance and direction.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice because, like you're saying, you're growing as a company and you have a lot of people. That means more people are coming on board to help with this project work. And if you have to travel holding hands with a lot of people, it's harder than holding hands with 4 people, and progressing down the road that you want to go. And you need a direction of where you're going. And it
Yeah,
can't be every direction. There's a prioritized direction, usually measured by some strategic initiative or KPI or objective that people want to follow. And that tunnel vision, is hard. You do need a bird's eye view of everything that's going on to make sure you're actually moving in the direction that you thought you were from the beginning, almost instead of walking with a blindfold on. So thanks for sharing
absolutely.
that advice. Yeah, to have
No,
that.
absolutely. I think it all starts with the mission and the vision that every organization has. So, whatever your mission and vision is, we need to make sure that all the projects are aligned with that. And that is only available or that is something which you can achieve if you have a PMO, which is making sure that the project outcomes are mapped to the mission and vision of the organization. So it's very so when you are looking at project, you're looking at project at a very um, individual projects and success of the project. But when you're looking at a portfolio, that is where you need a PMO to come in and help you align all your project goals with the vision and mission of the company. So that is where it comes in really, really handy.
And that's exciting for leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think you use the term partner, and that's exactly what it is for leadership, for the teams executing, for the project managers who are getting the work done, right? Is you then have that central place to say, like to Trina's point, we're all holding hands, we're in it together. Let's guide and let's move. Tying back to what Trina had mentioned on volunteering, you are a volunteer and you work with PMI specifically. It sounds like you're doing a lot of that front facing, holding hands and guiding. Can you tell us a little bit about the volunteer work that you do?
So I have been a member of HUG, which is the higher education user group. So when I was working for implementation of a ERP system for the Washington State community colleges, I was member of the HUG group, which is a higher education user group. And I used to be a presenter there at their alliance for national and international forums. I was invited from Australian HUG community to present a solution. So that really helps me and that motivates me, because what I'm doing in Washington for a group of community colleges, and when I'm presenting that solution in Florida to the North American user group, and somebody sitting in Australia sees us presentations and asks us to have a session, asks me to have a session and help them with that, and then they adopt that solution, that's a big motivating factor. So I always try to take out some time to give it back to the community at large, and also see how knowledge is of no use if you are not able to share. And that's exactly why we are today we are having this podcast. So being part of PMI, I have now taken up a volunteer role as for the PMI Olympia chapter as a director of technology there, and that's my way of sharing my experiences, sharing my knowledge that I have to others who are working on different projects, and help them in every possible way that I can.
It's amazing because you have plenty to do. I mean,
Right.
I'm not thinking to myself, oh, Sanjeev, he's got a lot of spare time to, give back, but it's rewarding to
Yes.
share that knowledge. You're taking your affinity for streamlining operations and you're helping others streamline their own career paths, like learn from this mistake or learn from what I learned, or here, did you know that you could do it this way? We really appreciate that you have brought your knowledge publicly. It's wonderful to know that you're sharing.
Yeah, and believe me, when I'm sharing that knowledge, it's also helped me validate that, hey, whatever I have learned in this scenario, and it worked for me in this scenario. Maybe you can use this. And when they try to use it, they also come back and tell me that, give me a feedback that, hey, you know what, we try to use this, but these are the challenges. So that challenge I did not face in this. So that is also something which teaches me. So whatever my when I'm sharing my ideas or where my learnings, I also learn from the others. So it's a continuation of the learning process. If I take my concept and say, hey, I have developed the best concept in the world and I want to hold on to that, I don't think that would be relevant in today's era. It will last a month also, because things are changing so fast. So you need to keep on applying your understanding in different spaces and see whether it holds good, and keep on modifying and improving. Just the Amazon way, right? We are never happy with where we are. We try to strive to be better, and that's a mantra that I use for my learning and my growth as well.
That's amazing. It really is a mark of a fantastic leader to combine humility and expectation of more learning, on top of what you've already learned, instead of saying, I've arrived. I know exactly what this is, and everyone should just do what I did and it will be fine. Right. It's really wonderful. That's one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the podcast today, is because of that style of leadership that you have, this humility of, you might have a better idea, or let's turn this upside down and try it a different way. I'm going to put those links to both the Hug group and the PMI Infinity platform that you're referring to, and some of the other things we've mentioned in the podcast. But we're coming to the end of our time together. I know that you have a Project Insight Wear Your Cape to Work mug with you. Matthew, do you have yours? Yep, here we are.
Yeah.
We're all Project Superheroes today. Sanjeev, we just really want to celebrate you and all that you do at Amazon, and all you've done through your career path, at the higher education level at United Airlines, and all along the way, where you've brought all of this learning and knowledge and problem solving and puzzle management and, efficiency direction to the teams that you've been a part of. You really do shine in the workplace. And Matthew and I just want to applaud you for bringing your talents to work and for sharing them with our audience today. Thank you so much for letting us have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you for joining us today on the Wear Your Cape to Work podcast, hosted by Project Insight. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, or leave us a comment. If you subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or other favorite podcast channels, you'll receive notifications of all of our new episodes. We'd also love it if you would share Wear Your Cape to Work with your network of PMPs or anyone else who might enjoy the show. Project Insight is an online project and portfolio management software that helps companies connect project data from across all of their teams and software tools so that they can make confident decisions about their business. Our website is projectinsight.com, and there you can find many resources for project professionals, including free PDU webinars, as well as a place to register for a demonstration or a consultation with one of our success teams. Thank you once again for joining today's conversation, and most importantly, thanks for wearing your cape to work.